welcome to my channel. My name is Ruth Garuba. In case you're new here, karibu sana. So today we want to learn about climate change. It's a topic in Form 2, yeah, in geography. So what is climate change? That's one question likely to be asked. It should be 1 to 2 marks. And basically, you should not use the word climate itself to define it. Yes, Mwalim? Good night. Yeah, so climate is the establishment of new weather patterns or new weather conditions in a place. Yeah, it could take time or within a very short period. We have different causes of climate change. They could be natural, they could be human. Natural, they are induced by nature. Human, they are induced by human beings, also known as anthropogenic factors. We also have people who split the causes or the factors as internal causes and external causes. And when they're talking about external, as external and internal. So for external, it means outside of something. So it's happening outside of that climatic condition, like system, where we know a system is a combination of different things that work together to achieve a common goal. So, for example, you find about the solar radiation. You know, sun is the main source of energy. So, when we have the Earth revolving and it's near the Earth's periphery, like its nearest, we are likely to have an increase in temperature because there will be increased solar intensity. But if it's very far away, using the Sunshine Campbell's Stokes recorder, we're likely to see that the temperatures will be lower than normal. Yeah, they'll not be constant. Then, if you're talking about internal causes, you're talking about things that are affecting the climatic system within itself. For example, it could be volcanicity, you know, the eruption of volcanic uh, materials. Yeah? There could be gaseous, there could be solids, there could be liquids from the Earth's surface up to the Earth, from the Earth's interior to the Earth's surface, right? Yeah. So let's look at the factors one by one. So if it's human factors, you try to look at the things that we do. For example, mining. When we do mining, we use plosives. Yeah, these plosives tend to release uh, carbon. They can release gases that are transparent, and they absorb this energy, the infrared, also known as heat energy. And because they are long waves, they're not able to penetrate through. So there's accumulation of that heat, leading to global warming, and that will increase the Earth's temperatures. So definitely what that means is that we shall have a change in climate. Another thing you think is industrialization. And industrialization, especially industries like steel making, you find this release of carbon and other greenhouse gases. Yeah, you'll find, for example, for those who remember the Solvay process, there was that carbon being recycled within it. So you're seeing this release of carbon, which will be oxidized to form carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas. So it will be able to allow penetration of the solar rays, which are short waves, and it will allow absorption of the long waves, the infrared waves. So there will be global warming, and consequently we shall have climate change happening because there will be increased temperatures. Okay, another thing that we have is about agriculture. So when you're practicing agriculture, you try to look especially on large scale farming. Let's say rice farming, the crops like rice, they will tend to release carbon. Yeah, and because there are no carbon sinks, so you'll consequently find that we have global warming happening. Another thing that's likely to happen if you're let's say rearing a lot of animals, they could tend to overgraze, yeah, and once they've overgrazed, and we know for the grass and the trees, vegetation that were acting as carbon sinks, they will have reduced, so there will be no carbon sequestration. Another thing is about population increase. So when we have an increase in population, you're likely to find that people will have to create space for settlement as well as for agriculture, and that means there will be reduced trees which will have acted as carbon sinks. So that means there will be release of the stored carbon, and that will increase the carbon that is the atmosphere, leading to an increase in temperatures. And once you have an increase in temperatures, there will be increased evaporation that will lead to increased precipitation rates. Okay, another human cause that we can talk about is use the consumption patterns, especially use of carbon fluorocarbons. Yeah, so things like aerosols. Um, you can find cleaning solvents, they have this carbon, they have fluorine, and they have carbon, so within them. So this will be released to the environment, leading to global warming because they act as effective greenhouse gases. Another thing is about fossil fuel. Yeah. So remember, especially in developing countries, you find that we're not that developed, so we still rely on biomass and fossil energies such as coal. So once it has been burnt up, there's release of carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas that will lead to global warming, and consequently we shall have increased temperature. Another thing that we have is about uh, forest and grassland fires. For example, I was smoking. Yeah, after some time, there is a, and maybe I disposed that lighter or the cigar butt carelessly, and the grass is dry and it's windy, so definitely there'll be a fire that will spread, and that will lead to deforestation. So in such a case, there will be release of carbon that had been stored. And remember, as it is burning, there is release of carbon itself, so this will contribute to global warming and an increase in the temperature of a given place. Another thing that you think is about transportation, especially where we use, everyone wants, a vehicle for luxury, or just, not only as a luxury but for convenience, and they're releasing a lot of this carbon, yeah, lead. Others you find um, the vehicle is faulty, so it releases the exhaust fumes, which are greenhouse gases, and they contribute to global warming. So that would be a challenge also. You can also get to talk about what should I look at? Okay, human factors. Basically, they rotate around the economic activities that we do. Yeah, like lumbering, it means that you'll have cut down the trees. So, um, for example, about agriculture, even the use of fertilizers, they get to emit nitrous 1 oxide, which is a greenhouse gas, and that will contribute to global warming. About the natural factors, they include the variation in the Earth's orbital characteristics. For example, when the Earth was rotating, is it near the Sun's periphery, or is it far away? If it's near, definitely there will be increase in temperature. If it's very far away, the aphelion, there will be low temperatures. Also, we have variation in the atmospheric carbon dioxide. Remember, the atmosphere contains 0.03% of the total air held by the atmosphere. So, if there is a change, maybe due to deforestation or any other human-induced factor, you'll find that that will also contribute to global, uh, to climate change. Another thing we have is volcanic eruption, when we have a release of these gaseous, solid, and liquid materials from the Earth's interior to the Earth's surface, there's release of gases, especially things like carbon dioxide, the ones that make mofetes. We have sulfur dioxide that makes the sulfataras, etc. Even the water, the warm water, does contribute to climate change. Another thing is about variation in solar output. Yeah, the Earth has absorbed the short waves, it will release the long waves, the heat. So in case the heat is too much, then definitely it will accumulate and lead to global warming. And that's a fact. So what are the consequences of climate change? Wanna see this? So one of the consequences that you're likely to see is about varied precipitation. Yeah, especially rainfall, it's likely to increase due to high evaporation rates, and that will mean, well, for those who depend on rain-fed agriculture, it's a plus. However, it will also lead to flooding because there will be increased water levels within the drainage systems. The second thing, that will be disruption of agriculture. Why? For example, areas where marginal agriculture is practiced, especially around the Sahel region, they will move towards the poles, and there we find in most cases we have poor soils, and this will contribute to food shortages. There will be food insecurity. There will be increased food commodity prices. Why? Because food is insufficient, yet we have a market demand here because of the growing population, and that means that human beings will be forced to buy food at a higher price. So there will be food insecurity because it's not accessible in this case, and it's not affordable. Yeah. Another thing that you're gonna see is in terms of the diseases that are going to come in. Yeah. Things like pests and diseases like warm and wetter regions, so they'll tend to thrive there, so that will affect agriculture, and in the end you'll see even in the global market uh, the prices will change. It will affect the pattern, you see. Yeah. Another thing is about disruption, disruption of the natural ecosystem. For example, you look at the ice sheets, yeah, the polar region. We have the polar bears, we have the trees that are adapted to such areas. So once we have a climate change, let's say the temperatures have increased, this high rainfall, or the temperatures have reduced indeed, you find that the ecosystem, the plants and animals are unable to adapt to such areas. So consequently, they will die, and that will mean loss of biodiversity. Another thing that you can get to look at is about ocean acidification. So some of marine life will be lost in the process. Another thing we will look at is normal plant growth. Yeah, because we have now the warm weather, we have a lot of rainfall in other areas, and this may contribute also to food security, which is okay. Yeah. Another thing is about shifting of climatic and vegetation zones. This is likely to affect people in terms of even trying to balance for tourism. Maybe you are coming to see the equatorial rainforest, now they've shifted, so that's likely to affect the different tourism patterns. Another thing you're seeing is about increased UV radiation. So because remember, you have things like the CFCs, and they have broken the ozone layer, which was acting as a shield or a blanket. So it now will be broken, and the UV will be coming directly, and that will lead to increased susceptibility, like prevalence to skin cancers and other things. And that's why it's very important to apply UV protection even when you're applying your ointment. You're likely to see is flooding due to the increased rising sea levels. Remember, the ice sheets have melted, so things like ice sheets even in the mountains like Mount Rwenzori, yeah, and that will mean we will have increased water levels within the sea. and the oceans, and that will contribute to flooding. As once we have flooding, the following is likely to happen. There will be loss of lives, there will be loss of property, like what we witnessed during the El Nino. There will be disruption of transport. I mean, it's a total mess. Yeah. You can also see there will be a change in the settlement patterns, um, among other things. So, and this will lead even to social displacement. You could see that people literally had to find another way to survive because, hey, yeah, the water was trying to follow its water channels, it's finding the air is blocked, and so we'll need to find a way. So this will even increase the construction cost. Another thing we have is increased warming of the city environment to create what is known as the hot islands and the heat strokes. So it becomes too hot because there are no um, trees or vegetation that could have squirted, absorbed that carbon. So it's excess in the atmosphere. It has led to global warming, and we have an heat island there. So you become uncomfortable. Even your rate of productivity becomes low because literally, maybe you're used to wearing a bow tie like this, and now you have to be forced to wear maybe a t-shirt. Yeah, I mean, it affects your productivity. Maybe you'll be feeling too sleepy. No, even the sun itself has a solidifying effect. So you can imagine how bad it will be. Or it's too cold. You can no longer do stuff. Another thing we have is increased droughts. Yeah, especially when we have increased rates of um, temperatures. So that will contribute to hunger, famine, and depopulation. People die of hunger. And once they've died of hunger, there'll be that misery. Yeah, that will happen also. Another thing we can see about the pandemics, like you remember about the COVID, yeah, it found a fertile ground because of the tropical climate. Yeah, it's very suitable for most diseases. Remember a place like when we were learning about glaciation, you were finding that those areas were less prone to diseases because they're too extremely cold that they cannot um, harbor the uh, the vectors. Yeah, so you can imagine when they find a warm, a wet place, they get to breed and multiply, and so it means our immunity will be affected even for plants because of the increased rates of, yes, come in, because of the increased rates of um, diseases and pest attacks. Another thing you're likely to see is there'll be a threatened international peace and security. So peace and security will be threatened due to competition for resources such as food, water, and land. And remember, these resources are scarce, so we shall be having wars between people, and this will lead to even killing, terrorism, etc. Um, and this is a topic that is very common in geopolitical considerations here. Another thing that will be shrinking of icebergs, and as I already said, that will mean even tourism will be affected, the ecosystem will be affected, etc. Another thing we shall have is denudation. We shall have landslides, earthquakes happening due to the change in climate. For example, you find it's too wet due to the increased precipitation. So definitely you will say there'll be landslides. So you see the another thing is that we're going to have getting a call from my domestic manager. Yeah, I need to go and see the baby, but first I have to attend to you. So we also have alteration in the spatial and temporal availability of water sources. When we're talking about spatial, it means the way it covers space. Temporal, the about time. So when we have increased temperatures, it means the increased evaporation, and that means over time the water will reduce. Like I remember where I live currently, the people use water basins. So there have been increased temperatures, and due to the increased use of water, it's a communal thing, the water basins are drying up, you see. And that means at one point, that place will be literally dry. You understand? Yeah, so that becomes a challenge. Another thing is about other areas will be receiving high rainfall, others will be receiving less rainfall, and these changes will also affect climate, especially if you are depending on climate. Yeah. Another thing shall have is being due to our own working. Yeah, we are now forcing ourselves to be eco refugees within our places. Yeah, we are becoming eco refugees, and that's not something appealing. So today, I appeal to you: be responsible, take care of your environment, and we'll take care of you. Take care of your planet, Earth will take care of you. Okay. Otherwise, have a good day, good evening, good afternoon, depending from where you're watching me right now. Until then, bye. Mwah. Please, oh, don't forget to subscribe, share. By the way, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Subscribe, eh? Hmm. Comment, like, share, Knowledge is power. Until then, bye.